Donald Trump has pushed for talks with Iran amid the tension in the Middle East. Donald Trump has asked J.D. Vance to engage Iran. He's calling for an outreach. But you've seen the stand of Iran. What has Iran said about the United States? Yesterday, in a bombshell, the U.S. media reported Benjamin Netanyahu as saying that Iran, in fact, was plotting the assassination of Donald Trump. So amid all these developments, Donald Trump has cut short his trip at the G7. He's heading back to Washington. He's also asked J.D. Vance to talk to Iran, engage Iran. What happens now that Donald Trump has also spoken to Putin about the escalating crisis? So what next in the escalating situation? Okay, so that's the latest. Also on your screens is the latest that Donald Trump is saying on how he's asked J.D. Vance to engage with Iran. Srinjoy, sir, Srinjoy is joining us. Srinjoy, can you also tell us about, do you think this kind of an outreach that Donald Trump is pushing for, and he's asked J.D. Vance to talk to Iran, what kind of impact can that make?
Historically, Iran has referred to America as Great Satan and Israel as Little Satan. Keeping that in mind, but anything can happen in diplomacy. Keeping that in mind and keeping in mind the fact that this conversation between Putin and Trump has happened, a 50-minute conversation, and you would expect at least half the conversation to be about Iran and Israel. The other half would, of course, be about Putin's war in Ukraine. But if you see this issue, then perhaps a combination of America and Russia speaking to both Iran and Israel is the one possibility. And when America and Russia both work together to speak to Israel and Iran, then the other countries would also have to play a part. And these countries could be Qatar, could be Oman, could be Saudi Arabia. There has to be a wider involvement, because otherwise it will get much more difficult. At this point, it's almost impossible to see any kind of further movement. But if there is pressure from the Russians, if there is American involvement, perhaps in a little while things could ease out. Because let's not forget, Iran apart, Israel is in many ways dependent on America, including for its weapons. So if there is American pressure on Israel saying, okay, enough is enough, you've done all the damage, we will ensure that Iran can never enrich their nuclear facilities, maybe there can be a ceasefire.
All right. But now let's also tell our viewers about the latest update coming in from the UN watchdog. Now, the IAEA has confirmed that there has been no radiation leak outside these strikes that were hit. But the agency's chief has gone ahead and has warned that repeated strikes could cause chemical or radiological contamination, especially if stored uranium gas is damaged. Now, the emergency board of the UN watchdog, nuke watchdog, has met in Vienna. They have also said that any strike on nuclear sites does not just risk local damage, but also a regional radiation crisis can loop. The fear is not just of a nuclear bomb, but of leaks, contamination, and a breakdown of global nuclear safety. So that is the larger concern that is being spoken about, that there is a fear of a breakdown of the global nuclear safety, and that is why world leaders are alarmed. At the G7 too, the focus, and there is a unanimous consensus on the fact that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But as these strikes continue, the United States has also started repositioning some of its military assets. Reports are suggesting that the US's Nimitz carrier strike group is also rushing towards the Middle East via the Strait of Malacca. The US's Thomas Hudner is a guided missile destroyer. It is also moving into the Eastern Mediterranean to strengthen defenses. This is as per reports that are coming in. Now, Pentagon's aim is also clear, that they will deter further escalation, and it wants to protect critical trade routes, including the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman. So, Srinjoy, there are analysts across the world who are talking about the significance of the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman, and if they in fact get dragged into the, to the escalating conflict, it could have far-reaching effects. How do you look at this development?
Well, the biggest worry, at least from what the IAEA is saying, is a possibility of radiation emitting from one of these plants that have been hit. Now, if let's say Natanz is hit and there is a huge cloud of radiation, where do you think the cloud will go? It will go to the region. And what is the region? North of Iran is Ukraine and Russia. West of Iran is Iraq, Syria, Israel. And further west is Europe. And east of Iran is Pakistan and India. And south of Iran is the Persian Gulf and much of the Indian Ocean. So as a result, everyone is at risk. That's actually one worry. As for the military deployment, the USS Nimitz is a super carrier, yes, 110,000-ton carrier, and it's surrounded by other military guided missile destroyers and so on. Now, this is a huge weapon system. So if there is already, I think, one super carrier already in the Indian Ocean, and if there are two, then clearly the Americans have enough strength. Right. But what can you do vis-a-vis this situation? At this point, this will only be used if American targets are hit. If, let's say, there are a whole lot of American targets in the area, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Oman, in Doha, and all these places, Saudi Arabia. So if any of these Iranian missiles hit these targets there, then yes, you will have the Nimitz in action. Right. But as long as Iran does not hit an American target, at least deliberately, then there's really bringing the Nimitz into the Persian Gulf is actually a precautionary measure. Right.
Thank you so much, Srinjoy, for breaking it down and putting it into perspective. We are tracking all the developments on the escalating crisis in the Middle East, which has also been the focus at the G7. With that, let's also shift our focus to the big story